What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Pancis. If it's your first time tuning in, please smash the subscribe button, comment below, and of course, give this video a like. If not, thanks for your continued support. Today, I am here with my 2000 Porsche 911 996. And if you're new to the channel, go ahead and check out the videos of where I took delivery and purchased this car. And what's going on, Todd? Taking delivery of the new Porsche, guys. And of course, my initial drive. This car was purchased about a month ago, 6 weeks at this point, from its third owner. And the car currently has 82,000 miles on it. And let me tell you, it is absolutely gorgeous. Inside and out, pretty much flawless. And I want to review today the most controversial part of this car, and that is the IMS bearing. The IMS bearing was changed from Porsche in the later 2000 year model all the way out to 2006 before they changed it again. And of course, as many people know, it has been known to fail and blow up the engine. It's like an internal ticking time bomb. And in this car, it's really not even that much of an issue unless one thing, except for one reason. So let's take a ride and I'll explain to you exactly what that looks like. And of course, some statistics that are behind the IMS bearing and why it's really not that much of an issue in this model year and earlier years. Let's take a look. All right, so before we get this thing fired up and start talking about the amazingness of this car and why the IMS bearing isn't too much of an issue, let's go through this quick booklet of records. I have the original letter from Porsche to their first owner that purchased the car, obviously a Carfax, and then of course over here what I have are a bunch of receipts from the last 15 years or more of this car that are all being serviced at Porsche, and of course all of the receipts from online purchases. So it's really well taken care of, this car. The previous owner just did a tremendous job keeping history and all of the information on this car. He even went out and wrote all of the different filters and oils that were used in the car for servicing, and of course at the miles and date of service, and then whatever issues were actually at stake, right? So back in 2017 on this car at 70,000 miles, we had replaced a failed water pump, thermostat, failed air oil connector, which is a plastic component, replaced the overflow tank coolant cap, drained as much coolant as possible and replaced it with exactly what it needed, bled out the air system, and of course did the radiators and all of these things. So the car, through its history, especially the previous owner, because the owner before me had the car for the longest period of time of this car's ownership. He purchased the car at 58,000 miles and drove it up to 82,000 miles, which in my humble opinion is the majority of the miles that are on the car based on the other owners before him. So without boring you anymore, it also went into the miles before him. He wrote this out. So I will have to continue the trend on this car of all of the service that is done. So the owners that are after me, if I do sell the car, will have record as well. So this is really important if you're purchasing a Porsche 911 from this generation, or any car in general that is a sports car such as this one, that could be one day not only a collectible, but just peace of mind that when you're spending a ton of money and getting involved in a car like this, you should have the records to make sure you know what you're getting into. And obviously, just based on looking at the car alone and the interior of the car is enough to really tell a big story of how well this car was taken care of. But then when you get this kind of information, it just doubles down on everything and makes you feel a lot more comfortable with the situation at hand. So that's something that I want you guys to know if you're gonna get into buying a car like this. Those are the things you should look at, is obviously the condition of the interior, exterior visually, but also a big stack of papers for 20 years of history on the car. That's absolutely amazing. All right, guys, so let's just do a brief history of the IMS bearing. Porsche started to use the IMS bearing, the intermediary shaft bearing, in 1999 with the 996 engine, and it was to save the cost of producing the engine. They figured they could use one single same casting, whatever, for the block, and they threw in at the original time they threw in a double bearing enclosed bearing, a double row bearing, right? So from 99 to 2000, and even some models in 2001, used the double row bearing. So this car that I'm in right now has a double row bearing, IMS bearing. These bearings were less likely to fail. It was the single row bearing that they changed to that started to fail, and all that was being used then from all the way from 2001 all the way out to 2006, 2008, and then of course class action lawsuit came out. So here's the deal: the sealed double row bearing was less likely to fail than the single row for some odd reason. But here's the situation: the later model years with the single row bearing were more likely to fail, and of course either destroying engines or having an engine out service, which was costing owners a lot of money. Still today, for 2 or 3 grand, you can replace this bearing. Even in this car, I can replace it. And there's even good aftermarket bearings that have oil being fed from the oil filter housing to constantly lubricate that bearing and prevent it from failing. Now the sealed bearings would dry out, and of course the bearings would go ahead and go, blow out. So the class action lawsuit included like 200,000 or 300,000 Porsche 911 owners and Boxer owners from this generation, from 1999 all the way out to 2008. And here's the situation: out of all of those people that were affected by an IMS failure, like 1.3% of those people that purchased these cars actually reported in this class action lawsuit. So if you guys put that into perspective, if you're looking at 250,000 cars, 1% of those cars had a failure rate. And the only reason why we know that is based on the statistics around this lawsuit. Because if anybody had a car that had that failure and could prove it, you would join in on the class action lawsuit, right? But only 1% reported it. So here's the deal. After reading about all this and talking to some other folks in the car community that know about these cars a little bit more than I, since I just purchased mine, and correct me if I'm wrong, these cars will not fail. So 2 things: these cars with the double row bearing will most likely not fail, and the higher the mileage, the less likely that bearing will fail, because driving the car in that scenario is helps lubricate a little bit in that area of the engine, and correct me if I'm wrong, and is less likely to fail. So the double row is almost bulletproof. The single row was really the one that had the issue, but again, it really wasn't that much of an issue because not that many people actually reported a failure. So if you're gonna go and buy a Porsche 996 with 20,000 miles and it has the original IMS bearing, chances are more likely that that bearing will fail because it's been sitting for 20 years or 15 years or whatever the circumstances look like, and has never been changed. So that bearing will naturally just deteriorate by not using the engine with the heat cycle and the oil cycles that come about when you're driving the engine. So just know that if you're going to drive a higher mileage Porsche 996 like this one with a double row bearing, I'm least likely to be affected by an IMS failure. So I am not concerned whatsoever about this happening to me. Now, if I were to go in there and change out the clutch or do something like that where I have to pull the transmission, I will obviously go ahead and spend the extra money and do the IMS bearing if I'm in there. But this car has the original clutch, and so far it is flawless because all of the owners before me took really nice care of this car. In the immediate time, I am not going to be doing any of these services, and I am not concerned because I got 82,000 miles. It's about 4,000 miles a year. So that means that this car has been driven enough every year through the course of its life to not really be concerned of that bearing failing. So that is my take on the IMS bearing. I've spoken to a couple different mechanics and enthusiasts of this generation, and all of them told me that most of the forums out there and most people just kind of load the emotions up behind the IMS as an issue, and people get scared. And the reason why I'm making this video is there's nothing to be scared about. Do not be scared of the IMS bearing. That is what I have to tell you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if I'm wrong with anything that I suggested, please comment below, and of course give this video a like regardless, because I'm here trying to convey a message, some messages that are different than most people's emotion, and trying to give you the facts that are black and white printed out from a class action lawsuit, and you know, instill some confidence in these cars because they're becoming classics. So if you guys want to hop on board before the prices shoot up, that's another video. But I think the prices on these cars are going to start to shoot up. I've already seen the market fluctuate in the last couple weeks. I can see other cars coming on the market, and it's kind of fascinating to see. So alright guys, that's a wrap for this video. I hope you guys liked my one take on the IMS bearing. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can either comment below or follow me at Kyle Pancis on my Instagram. A lot of you guys message me out there, so be sure to follow me there, and you guys can shoot me a message as well. Stay tuned for more content. We got more reviews coming this week, and other things in the works, projects as well, so be sure to subscribe. Stay tuned for more. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.